It's the biggest weekend in all of motorsports. We've got NASCAR, we've got Indy, we've got F1, and we've got it all here for you on the back road. So come on down with us and let's talk a little racing.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag does roll this race.
Two from the States.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the Backroad. This is In Between Media's NASCAR betting show. My name is Elliot Hicks. With me tonight is Rod Villagomez. And Rod, you said it. It is the biggest weekend in motorsports. We have got a little bit of everything going on. I'm coming to you guys from my office tonight, going through a move, still working on the internet. How's it going in Hot Rod's garage this evening?
It is fantastic. It's busy. I don't know that I've left this for the last few days. Is putting out episodes for, the Coke 600, like you said, just NASCAR, DFS, the Xfinity series, the Truck series, about to do IndyCar. I mean, I get tired just talking about it, but I'm going to continue to do so because this is what we live for, this type of weekend where all the big events are happening at once.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We have got a jam-packed show for sure. We'll look back in the rear view at the All-Star race, a pretty exciting All-Star race, give you a news update from all around the world of racing. In our Horizon forecast, we'll break down Charlotte and everything going there. And then the parking garage props, what you all come for. We've got the Coca-Cola 600 in the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, F1s in Monaco, and, of course, the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500 coming along. And we'd love for you guys to come along with us in the IBT Racing family. It's our exclusive Discord. Gives you access to our exclusive weekly betting model, access to memorabilia giveaways. We could go on and on about it. We know that most of you guys have heard about it, so we're just continuing to be thankful for those who are around and hoping that we can get some more in. Only $3.99 a month or $36 a year. Skip one of our bets that you hear that you don't like a whole lot and join the Discord instead. It's a lot of fun over there.
Indeed. Yeah. And honestly, too, when you catch the show live, that's one thing. We get to talk to you live and we get to maybe interact with you for a couple seconds. You join that Discord, we're there and we're talking to you all the time.
Yep, I neglected to mention that. We got all of us in the chat. Ryan from My Fantasy Race. A lot of great analysis and chatting that we got going on there. So go ahead and hop in. You also can stream the audio version if you don't feel like looking at us and just want to throw us on in the car or something like that. Audio version streams on Apple Podcasts, as well as shout out to those down in West Tennessee, 101.5 FM, Talking West Tennessee, 8 p.m. on Saturdays. You can catch that if you're in the area. The links to all that, the Discord, the audio, the radio station, and everything else in the episode description. And even if you can't make that extra effort, give the video a like and subscribe if you like what's going on. Still the most organic way to help out. Shout out to the YouTube stream and everyone. And shout out to the commenters as well. Of course, our guy Marcus saying hello. Throw in the comments who's your pick to win, not only just the Coke 600, but any of the races that we got this weekend. I wonder who Marcus is picking. Any guesses? Pretty obvious if you've been around. Chris Bell, back-to-back Coke 600s last year. Win the Coke 373.5 or whatever it was. So first real Coke 600 would be nice there. Nick with us as well, and looking forward to seeing all of us throughout the remainder of the show. Going to be a fun one, so let's go ahead and get it rolling and take a look back in the review. And I tell you what, it is still so cool to see North Wilkesboro Speedway hosting racing events in the year 2025. Truck Series race, of course, and the Cup All-Star race in the trucks. Pretty electric battle there at the end between Lane Riggs and Corey Heim. Leaves Chandler Smith the victor after those two get into each other. And Corey Heim's dominance does not bear fruit once again. That guy feels like he's dominated every single truck race and has still not been able to get nearly as many wins as he should.
So for him, and when you see the frustration and the disappointment on his face, you know that it's warranted because he is one of the fastest trucks, if not the fastest truck every single week. And part of racing is suffering through these stretches where you're going to run into some bad luck. I mean, look at Kyle Busch, one of the more dominant drivers ever, right? And even in the Truck Series especially, he comes back down. He's having so much trouble, not just in the Cup Series rides, but the Truck Series rides too. So I think this is part of his maturation process, because if it all came too easy for him every single time, then I don't know that he'd be a better racer in the future. So I think this is good for him to go through this now when he's young, when he's, learning the ropes, and then eventually maybe he can turn that into a much better career. But I mean, it sucks in the meantime, right? For him, he can't turn any of these great runs into a win, and that's got to be super frustrating.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Race car drivers, they want to win every race, and certainly Corey Heim is one of those guys. I feel like with the Truck Series betting markets, in F1 occasionally they'll have markets where you have the race winner and then race winner without Verstappen or without Oscar Piastri. We need Truck Series winner without Corey Heim, I feel like, because he's always the favorite and is the favorite once again this week, but we'll get to that a little later. Cup Series, I feel like it was probably the best all-star race we had in years. North Wilkesboro, probably the best racing short track in the Cup Series right now. Christopher Bell with the hard move on Logano for the win there. He led quite a bit throughout the race, had the right strategy at the end. Logano was very upset about that move, which I feel like is Joey Logano being the pot calling the kettle black. With some of the moves Logano has made. It was an exciting race. I feel like Logano being upset is definitely silly.
I mean, as somebody who had Logano as an outright, I was a little bit ticked off about it myself, but I get it. I mean, it's a racing move, and that's exactly what you need to do to make passes at North Wilkesboro. And honestly, it was a very entertaining race from top to bottom. Take the betting aspect out of it, right? I mean, I know that's we see these races a lot through racing lenses, and we get a little frustrated because, as a Joey Logano ticket holder, you're like, oh, that sucked. But you also have to take the race for what it was, and there was a lot of great passing. There was a lot of great strategy. There was just a lot of great moments in that race from start to finish. And like you said, it made you pay attention to an all-star race for something other than just, okay, it's racing, it's on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You brought up the betting markets. Any bets you had that won last week from North Wilkesboro?
I would rather just move on to Charlotte. That's where we're at right now. I mean, honestly, look, there was a lot of them that were cashing up until the very end of that race. There was a lot of unfortunate turns in the betting aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, I just enjoyed watching the race, the betting outcomes notwithstanding.
Yeah, I had a very light card for the week. Only bet on Larson to win the main race, Priest to win the Open. Neither of those hit. But like I said, definitely more focused on this week and the big things going on. And the big story in racing right now as we move into our Fast Lap news segment of the week, Team Penske in scandal at the moment. The attenuator is a word that a lot of us are learning for probably the first time this week, at least those that aren't super into the tech side. Joseph Newgarden and Will Power both sent to the rear of the Indianapolis 500 field for illegally modifying this attenuator. And Roger Penske gets rid of 3 big-time execs in his company, including longtime team executive Tim Cindric, who has been Penske's right-hand man since I was a little kid first starting to watch and hearing his appearances on Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain and things like that. This is pretty wild. I don't know if you have any additional explanation on what this attenuator thing is. I know they tried to kind of connect 2 pieces together to make it look better. Maybe it wasn't a competitive advantage. Either way, it's a pretty wild situation over there in IndyCar right now with Penske. It's
the old saying, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And I know that every race team is trying to get that little edge on there. But what I really get surprised about more often than not is how they get surprised that they get caught or how they get mad that they got caught. It's like the way they inspect these cars now, you have to think that they're looking for everything that doesn't add up correctly. And you can't feel stilted by the fact that you got caught trying to push the edge a little bit. And obviously we don't blame the race teams for trying to get a little bit of an advantage because the way they build the cars now, pretty much everything's the same, right? And there's very few areas where you can tweak yourself to get that advantage. So you've got to find ways to pick up a couple tenths of a second here and there. And I mean, look, you don't blame these guys for doing it. You just have to roll with it when you get caught.
Yeah, like you said, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying is the saying that goes around. Somebody went to, it must be the Indianapolis Museum or something like that, went and took a look at Joseph Newgarden's winning car from last year, and it did also have this illegal modification on it that they're just now finding. Definitely something that'll be interesting to watch and has really affected, Newgarden was going to go for 3 in a row. Still has that chance, obviously. He just said it's a much higher mountain to climb. And, of course, Will Power. Scott McLaughlin was already in kind of enough trouble. His attenuator was cleared, but that car ended up destroyed, and he's going to start further back than he might have anyway over there. And with the executives getting fired, even if you don't know the name Tim Cindric, you recognize the name Cindric because Austin Cindric drives the Penske number 2 car. There's been some talk, could Austin Cindric be in trouble? Could he be out of his ride as soon as this week? I do feel like it has been a really good time for Austin Cindric to really start to break out, have a good season, get that win at Talladega, because otherwise you could really throw up the nepotism flag for sure with this 2 car.
Well, I mean, are you blamed for the sins of your father? It's kind of like how can you blame the race car driver for what somebody's doing in a completely different aspect of the sport? So yeah, I mean, you're right. Austin Cindric's been turning it on just in time. Maybe if he was suffering this season, maybe we're talking a little bit different, but he's actually been doing well this season, which probably saved him so far.
Yeah, it could be something interesting to watch though, even if not for this coming silly season. Maybe in a year or two, maybe they decide, hey, I don't employ his dad anymore. We know Cindric's a good driver. I'm not saying he should get thrown out of that 2 ride, especially as a Bowman fan. People always talk about guys who don't win every single race. They should be out of there and get somebody new in the ride. But could it be something else to watch? Some other things to watch in the racing scene. RFK Racing going to appeal the penalty, the number 17 that was levied after Kansas, I believe. They had their crew chief skip the All-Star race, but now they're going to appeal that penalty. Connor Zilisch, back from his back injury this weekend, will race both Xfinity and Cup Series. And a rumor that's going around, no official announcement, but I've seen some paint schemes leak. Daniel Suarez supposedly going to race the number 9 for JRM in the Mexico Xfinity race. Like I said, with sponsorship from Quaker State. That definitely doesn't surprise me. And like you said, excited about Zilisch being back this weekend too.
Zilisch will come up later on in this episode. I'm definitely excited because he's got an opportunity, like you said, to run the Cup race and in a pretty good ride. So we'll keep an eye on that one. As for Daniel Suarez, why wouldn't you put him in as many races as you can get him in on his home soil in, his home country? You got to put the guy that everybody's going to cheer for on the track, and the Xfinity Series is a great opportunity for them to get more butts in the seats. As if there was going to be a problem, I think Mexico's going to be well attended, and I think with Daniel Suarez running multiple races, that pretty much solidifies the attendance issues.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be a fun race weekend to look forward to. Only a few weeks away, just like Pocono. I believe it's a month from today is the Pocono race on June 22nd. Crazy that it comes up that quick. That's going to be an exciting time. But as much as we want to get to all that, we do have a beautiful racing weekend in store. Let's start to look ahead to it in the Horizon Forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
So let's look at this weekend's schedule and the entry list across all the beautiful racing series that are out there. It's going to start with some fun tomorrow. If all this great racing is just 2 series for you, if you're just looking for something to completely take your mind off of it, we got the Weenie 500. They're going to put 6 of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles on the track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 2 p.m. tomorrow, Fox Sports app and the Fox X account. The people who drive these things around the country are going to be racing them. That's going to be fun to watch. Getting to the real racing though. 3:35 tomorrow, we got the Truck Series on track for practice and qualifying. And then 8:30 tomorrow night, the North Carolina Education Lottery 200 from Charlotte. Stage lengths at 30, 30, and 74. Special entries in that race, Brandon Jones will drive the Tricon number 1. BJ McLeod gets a shot in the Spire 07. That's going to be exciting. Kyle Busch in the Spire 7. Ross Chastain in the 44 for Nice, as you see there on your screen. Saturday, we crack open Xfinity and Cup, 11:05 a.m., Xfinity practice and qualifying 1:30 p.m. on Prime, where the races are now. Cup practice and qualifying, and then at 4:30 the BetMGM 300 in the Xfinity Series, 45, 45, and 110. Your stage lengths there. Kind of funny, the last stage for Xfinity longer than any of the stages you'll see in Cup. Austin Dillon's going to run the 3 car for RCR in that race. William Byron in the Hendrick 17. Chase Briscoe making his start, I believe his lone Xfinity start of the year. Lance Cracker's number 19 for JGR. Then Sunday, the big day, the big dance starts at 9 a.m. Pretty early for you out on the West Coast there, Rod. 6 a.m. start. The Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. You can watch it in the U.S. on ESPN. Approximate green flag time for the Indianapolis 500 is 12:45 p.m. on Fox. If you feel like watching the hours and hours of pre-race coverage, go right ahead. I think I'm probably going to skip some of that. And then our big show, 6 o'clock on Prime, the Coca-Cola 600, 4 stages, 100 laps each. All in all, it is going to be such an exciting weekend. Anything you're looking forward to the most, it's definitely the Weenie 500, right?
Well, and I was about to ask you, have you ever seen one of those things in person? Because I have. They are pretty massive, actually. So to see those things tooling around the track, I'm actually all for it. I've got my little Oscar Mayer Wiener whistle. I don't have it with me right now, but I'm probably going to be, cheering for that one. Oh, wait, they're all the same. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think they did put numbers and identifiers on there. I think the one I put on the screen there is the Chicago Dog Wienermobile. So that should be fun. No doubt about it. I didn't mention the entries for the Cup Series. 36 charters. Derek Kraus is going to be in the 44 for NY Racing. Josh Bilicki in the 66. We mentioned Connor Zilisch in the 87 and Jimmie Johnson in the 84, going to make his 700th Cup Series start. Definitely a lot of definitely going to get a lot of the attention there. A couple other guys hitting some milestones too. It's Daniel Suarez's 300th Cup start, Ryan Preece's 200th, Ty Gibbs 100th. I don't think it's going to be any of those guys' final start, but number 700, could it be the last one for your guy Jimmie Johnson?
You know, it depends on how good he does, on how well he runs this one. And Legacy's actually been a top 10 contender for the past few races here. So I don't know if he comes out. I mean, he did finish second in or third in the Daytona 500. So if he comes out with another top 5, I don't know. I hate to say it, but it could be it for him because 700 is a nice round number to end on. And, you know that you're putting enough attention into the ownership aspect of the car. I don't want to see it, Jimmie. I want to see you race until, you know, we're well and old, truly older, because we're the same age, Jimmie and I, you know, old pals from California. But no, I'd like to see him keep racing. But yeah, this would be a nice way to walk out.
Yeah, and there is a lot of feel. I just saw he put up a clip on social media, kind of as like a career retrospect, showing the first start, first win, all the championship clips. It's almost got that feel of, okay, it's the perfect way to end it, Daytona 500 and Coca-Cola 600. There definitely is something to, I feel like he can still bring it on track. You know, Legacy has really improved, and I'm sure he still has fun with it. So it's just a matter of, does he want the storybook ending, run all the laps, get a good finish if he does in the Coke 600, or maybe he'll come back for a couple of more and bump that off of that nice round number there.
I don't know. I'm going to be heartbroken to see it if it is the very last one. But again, I mean, look, this is the beginning of his ownership, like his straight up ownership stint. So he started out kind of rocky in his rookie seasons and then started winning championships. Who's to say he can't do that as an owner?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, it didn't take him very long to win. I think it was definitely within his first 20 starts, got his first win there in Fontana, and the sky really was the limit for Jimmie Johnson there. 700 could be the last one, but we'll have to see. Either way, it'll be exciting to watch. Guaranteed in the race, only 40 cars, which is the max that you can see in a field. BJ McLeod not entering that 78. Maybe he gets that Spire right. Hey, we want Jimmie to be in. We want Zilisch to be in. Maybe don't enter that 78. We know it probably won't run as well. But anyway, we'll take off the tinfoil hat and start to look at the track here. Charlotte, typical 1.5 mile intermediate, D-shaped oval, low to moderate tire where we generally see here. 24 degrees of banking in the turns, 5 degrees on the straights. The 3 primary comps, they're all kind of sister tracks here. Kansas, Las Vegas, and Texas, pretty convenient. We've been to all 3 of them already this year. Kansas and Texas were the 2 most recent points races, so definitely a lot of data to be taken from those. Any of those 3 that you think compare most similarly to Charlotte? What are you looking for from those 3 particular primary comps?
I mean, this is the ideal cookie cutter, right? This is what when we talked about cookie cutters, these were pretty much the cookie cutters in the 1.5 miles. So you kind of take all 3 of them in there. Honestly, I would probably take the last one that we drove at was Kansas, right? Because that's the freshest in their minds, still 1.5 miles. So I feel like that would be the one to take a look at. Vegas earlier in the year, okay. But yeah, I would say probably the what's most in their memory as far as 1.5 miles is concerned would be Kansas.
Yeah, so of course you had the little break with the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro, but 3 points races in a row. Feels like the guys who had fast cars at Kansas and Texas also probably going to be pretty fast here. Some secondary comps, Homestead and Michigan. We were, of course, at Homestead just a couple of weeks ago. Michigan comes a little later in the summer, but definitely like in the cookie cutter 1.5 miles, and those are definitely the ones to look for the most. As we crack up on the trends, a lot of interesting qualifying trends here. A race fact, though, first, there's only been 3 previous next-gen races on the Charlotte Oval. We kind of ran into this at Bristol, too, where it's still one of those tracks that's kind of a new next-gen track. We threw dirt on Bristol in the spring for a couple of years in the next-gen, so it really only had those couple. And here we run the Roval every fall. So we really 3 previous races, one of them was significantly shortened there. Does that give you any pause when looking at Charlotte, or do you think that all the other comp tracks make it easier to give a comp to Charlotte and base all that data the way you want it to?
Well, and then when we look at it too, also this extra 100 miles for this particular race kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in a lot of the research that you do, because the 600, you know, it's 200 more than a 400, it's 100 more than a 500, and it's just a very, very long race with a lot. I mean, I think I'm going to give out a prop later on that's going to say that this race gets interrupted quite a bit too, and so you know it's different than the other tracks because you run so many miles on it, right? And it races like a lot of the 1.5 miles, but the race is nowhere near like these other 1.5 miles.
Yeah, as long as none of those interruptions are for rain. I know Kyle Larson definitely doesn't want any rain anywhere like we saw last year. That would definitely be a big plus. Looking at some qualifying trends here, William Byron actually leads all active drivers and is second best all time behind only Fireball Roberts in average start position here. Average start spot of 5.325 in 8 starts here. In terms of active full-time drivers, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch each have 3 pole wins here. That leads active full-time drivers. Jimmie Johnson does have 4. No longer full-time, though. And in terms of pole qualifying this week, Hendrick Motorsports can tie the Wood Brothers for the most all-time Charlotte poles this weekend. Wood Brothers have 20. HMS is at 19. And with how fast the Hendrick cars have been on mile and a half, especially, that's definitely a record they could set this weekend.
I mean, Jimmie Johnson pretty much cemented this and Dover, like, are the 2 tracks that Jimmie Johnson is just synonymous with, right? All those 8 wins for Jimmie, yep. All kinds of top 10s and lots of laps led. So yeah, I mean, this is a Hendrick Motorsports track. Yeah,
with how often Jimmie Johnson won here, they could have called it Lowe's Motor Speedway a hell of a lot longer than when they moved it back to Charlotte in 2010. Moving into qualifying and race transition here, of course, 3 next-gen races. Denny Hamlin won from the pole in 2022, but it certainly took a long way to get there. I believe it was 22 that was the longest race mileage-wise of all time in NASCAR. They went into, I think, 2 overtimes there. Some crazy crashes at the front there. 2023, Ryan Blaney got the win from P8 that year. Byron won the pole that year and finished second. And last year, the Coke 373.5 was won by Christopher Bell from the 3rd position. Ty Gibbs won his first career pole, I believe, that weekend and finished P6. Overall, qualifying, really important here as you look at the overall trends. The pole sitter wins 15.1% of the time. That's obviously the highest. P2 wins 13.49% of the time, which is second. P3, 12.7% of the time. Those are the 3 highest percentages on the board. Races here won from the top 5, 55.5% of the time, and from the top 10, 74.6% of the time. I know some of those numbers end up becoming a little more pedestrian as you go down the board. And of course, 600 miles offers you a lot of opportunity and a lot of time to get to the front, but qualifying very clearly important this weekend at Charlotte.
Yeah, and we talk about how hard it is to pass on some of these other tracks, but I mean, again, when you start to string this thing out, and if there is some form of caution-free racing for a little while there might not be a lot, yeah, it's definitely hard to start making those passes. And when you're the lead guy and you can check out and lead 100, 200 laps of this thing, then you know you're basically in the catbird seat, and it's definitely tough to run you down.
Yeah, and I hate to be the old school, get off my lawn kind of guy. The stage racing, one of those things that maybe takes away from, Coca-Cola 600 is looked at as one of those crown jewels, but it feels like, the Daytona 500 is easier to win than ever, or at least it takes more luck to win than ever. The Brickyard, people go back and forth. Bristol night race is, with how the car is, that definitely makes it difficult. So the Coke 600, even with the stages, feels like one of the last true bastions of old school auto racing. Running 600 miles, especially when there's a lot of races. You used to run, felt like almost every race was either 500 laps or 500 miles, all being whittled down. You have way more 400s than you do 500s. Coke 600 being old school. I definitely appreciate that. And of course, they make it a heck of a weekend too. A lot of patriotic paint schemes that we'll go throughout the bets tonight that makes it a really fun weekend. I wonder, though, are they still doing the halfway break for the moment of silence? I haven't looked that up.
That's a good question. I don't know if they do or not. I don't think they did last year. So maybe they won't do it again this year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, last year they couldn't really get there, right? Because
yeah, they had plenty of silence after they forgot to run the latter half of the race with the miss. But anyway, I think I'm done with those jokes and bits for the night. Some race trends. Brad Keselowski is the only active full-time driver that has multiple wins on the Charlotte Oval. 2020 he won the Coke 600. I believe it was 2013. I should have wrote it down. Of course, active full-time Keselowski, Jimmie Johnson, 8 wins here. Definitely was his playground for a long time. Tyler Reddick has the best average finish of active drivers. 6 starts here, 7.66. So Reddick, no surprise here with how well he runs at especially the higher speed intermediates, that he does pretty well here too. And you would think Coke 600 Charlotte, one of those traditional ovals that you wouldn't see a lot of first-time winners. But in the history of the track, we've seen 10. Going all the way back, Jeff Gordon's first win was at Charlotte. Bobby Labonte back in the day. More recently, Matt Kenseth, Jamie McMurray, Casey Mears in that 2007 Wild Fuel Mileage race, David Rudiman in a rain-shortened 2009 race, and Austin Dillon back in 2017. So for the Ty Gibbs and Carson Hocevar fans, of which I know you definitely are one, Rod, the hope is not lost for the weekend.
They are both my banner. You caught me. I love me some Ty Gibbs. I love me some Carson Osavar. I'm about to go buy their die casts, so I can prove it.
Yeah, hey, die casts are getting more expensive. You got to be. We all got to watch our wallets nowadays. But anyway, the iFantasy Race Asterisk Mark Driver of the Week, something that we bring you each and every week. Ryan from iFantasy Race does a great job with just so much work that he does over there. Every stat you could possibly want. The total speed ranking is one that we use frequently. He helps power our model and also gives us an asterisk mark report of drivers that the finish didn't look quite as good in the most recent race, but there's a reason for that. And Rod, we've got this week's iFantasy Race asterisk mark driver.
Indeed, we do. But first, I also want to shout out Loop Data, man. You get Loop Data on iFantasy Race. Woo! You want to talk about great, especially for the fastest laps props that are out there right now. That definitely helps as well. Ryan Blaney, the iFantasyRace.com asterisk Mark Driver of the Week. Say that 3 times fast. He looked to be a top 10 performer in last year's Coca-Cola 600. The 373.5.
I forgot. I threw that one in there. I don't think that one was Ryan.
No, that's.
I had one more that I forgot about.
But he actually finished an asterisk mark 39th. In that race, Blaney started 16th. He finished 7th in stage 1. But in stage 2, Blaney had an issue during a pit stop, went back on the track, slammed into the wall about as hard as he could, and then his race was over, dooming into the poor result. Shortly before his demise, Blaney was running around 11th in terms of total speed rankings. He ranked 11th as well. Seems like the story of this season for Ryan Blaney too, though, right? It feels like a little bit of bad luck on this race, and hopefully it doesn't translate and carry over from this season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He'll be hoping the weekend goes a lot more like 2023 when he won than 2024 when he crashed out. But yeah, this season for Blaney, we've seen it so many times. Best car running away at Homestead blows a motor and has just had so many things happen to take wins away from that number 12 this year that he'll be hoping, of course, do not happen this weekend. Before we get to the bets, I'll shout out some more of the comments we've got. We shout out Nick already, NASCAR Gambling Podcast checking in. I've never heard of that show. I wonder what it's like. No, just kidding. Cody and Rod do a great job over there.
Who's the man in the bell? I'm here.
Maybe we were talking about how many monitors you have back there. Maybe one of them's over on that YouTube and giving us some extra love here. Nick going with Ryan Blaney to win on Sunday. It gave us whole top 5 for trucks. Tanner Gray, Matt Crafton, Corey Heim, Gio Ruggiero, and Caden Honeycutt. Tanner Gray, that's a bold pick there. But I was just talking about first-time winners. They can certainly happen at Charlotte. Taking Will Power to win Indy, even starting way in the back there. That's impressive. Cup drivers for Nick to watch at Charlotte: Larson, Blaney, Bell, Hamlin, Keselowski, and Byron. All pretty fair picks. Definitely some guys that we'll talk about later in the show. Of course, Larson is the topic, going to be running the Indy 500, hoping that everything goes smoothly there. I want to see him run all 1,100 miles. I don't think he's got really a chance to win the Indy 500. We know that he'll be good at Charlotte, even though he will probably have to start from the back if they cut it close enough to where he misses driver intros. But it's definitely really exciting to watch anytime any guy from NASCAR goes out there and runs the double.
Yeah, and to me, well, actually, you know what, Elliot, I want an award if we watch the triple. Like, I want an award for us if we watch all 1,100 miles plus the 300 kilometers or 500 kilometers for the Indy or the F1 race. I want an award for that. Let's get somebody to watch all 3 races at once, back to back to back.
Yeah, and what would be brilliant is if there was some way you could travel and hit at least part of all 3 tracks in one day. I know some people. I think it was a Reddit post I was reading earlier about could someone realistically watch the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 and get there to be able to see both races. They said maybe you could watch the green flag at Indy, catch a domestic flight after about 10 laps, and then maybe make it to Charlotte in time for the checkered flag. Of course, lots of traffic and things like that. All things that nobody listening to the show cares about, but it's still fun to think of the logistics. Andrew with an interesting question here. Shout out, Andrew. Who is the best crew chief at adapting to changing track conditions? That's definitely an interesting one. I don't know if there's any specific, if a guy's got a skill set quite that specific, but you have to shout out some of the top guys in the garage, your Cliff Daniels of the world for sure.
The one that wins, Andrew, the one that ends up winning the race. That's the crew chief that is the best at adapting to changing track conditions.
Yeah, and I feel like it almost changes, week to week, maybe quarter to quarter in season. You see some teams really start out slow and then fire off well. It almost has to do more with the setup of the car. Of course, you're expecting, hey, this is going to start in the evening sun, and then you end up racing in the dead of night by the end of it after 600 miles. Track's going to change a little bit. Obviously, you can make adjustments, but there are a lot of guys that will put that in the setup, and especially with the more extended stages that you see in the Coke 600, you can see comers and goers more than some of these other 400-mile races that you've got. You're going to be racing to X point in stage 1 and 2, and then it's only a real race the last 100 or so laps in stage 3.
Yeah, and again, this is just going to be one of those ones where you hope for just a nice, clean race from your pit crew, from your driver, from everybody that's involved with it. And if you can, with the crew chief making the calls, hopefully it's the one that makes the right moves at the end.
Yeah, and like I said, there are upset winners. There are some guys who have knacks for this track. I mean, Casey Kane didn't become a super prolific star, multi-time champion, some of the things that we may have thought he was early in his career, but I think he won 3 Coke 600s, or at least 3 races at Charlotte. He was a guy who consistently ran well here, and some guys just nailed the setup at particular places too.
Chad Knaus. There you go.
We know that. I think Chad was the best at just about everything, including a couple ill-timed penalties in his career, but hey, 7 championships, something not many guys can do, of course.
Indeed.
All right, well, hey, we know who we think is best set up to win at Charlotte, and we'll go ahead and go through all the series here in our parking garage props for the evening. Still the best little music that we have in any of our drops here. I know we're going to probably be changing up those clips at some time before the end of the year. Hopefully we'll have to talk Seth into keeping that one. Shout out to Seth too. Put in a lot of work earlier this week before leaving for a vacation. Enjoying, he picked a hell of a time to go on vacation, one of the biggest racing weeks of the year, but grateful that he gives us the reins here and we have a good time with it. Looking at the books this week, it was interesting because I thought there was way more variety in numbers from book to book than we see in most weeks. And that was really interesting to see. There were some numbers that I definitely want to take advantage of that I'll bring up as we go through the evening.
I know they were a little late to the party as well. You give us outrights way, way, way in advance and then tighten up as the race starts to come out. But listen, it's crazy because there was a lot of difference between some of the numbers in there and especially some of the top 10 numbers and some of the outright numbers for sure. Which meant, you really had to do your shopping. And we tell you that every single week. Make sure you're shopping around for the best lines because sometimes you'll get a line on FanDuel that is way better off for you than it is on another, whatever book you're at, Caesars or Bet365 even. So, yeah, I was very happy with the overall numbers. Maybe not the timing of the offerings, but at least the offerings were good.
Yeah, well, I think you guys had to move a show early in the week, a live show, because they just didn't have the odds out early enough for you guys, right? I'm
convinced that they know exactly when we go live now, and they're playing this cat and mouse game with us to see if we're going to actually do something. But you won't win. We'll always put out a show whenever we get the full set of books. So whenever you drop them, it's on you. It's on you, books.
Yeah, and it really is us against the books here. Definitely play the books. I know the Action Network is a good resource that I use. It aggregates the data from, I believe, Caesars, BetMGM, BetRivers, FanDuel, DraftKings, maybe a 6th one in there, I'm not sure. But of course, then I have to go look, there's ESPN Bet365, all these other things. Thankfully, we have all these books legal in Pennsylvania. I think California is still missing a couple, but also has a couple more that we don't have in Pennsylvania. You have a couple from Hard Rock Bet that I don't think we have in PA yet, but I guess it's clear for you guys out there.
Oh, or not. We can't do it at all. I just get to look at all the different books from different states. That's all there is to it. Yeah. California's still behind in the entirety of sports betting. So yeah, we'll get there. We're the 4th largest economy in the world. How can we not support this?
Yeah, I feel like Cali betting would be fun. A couple other comments here. Chastain due for a win, says Nick. That's a good point. And Andrew, think long runs will benefit Blaney the most. We know Blaney's had a good car on these type of tracks this year. I don't know, Rod, why don't you tell us about Ryan Blaney this week to kick off our outrights?
It's such a crazy thing for Ryan Blaney. If you look at the heat chart, right, the total heat chart ranking from our friends over at iFantasy Race, Ryan Blaney, 3rd on the list in 1.5-mile speed ranking. So he is definitely fast. But unfortunately, you look at the finishes and they're not there, right? Vegas 35th, Homestead 36th, Kansas finally 3rd, Texas finally 3rd. So what I'm hoping for and absolutely hoping for is that Ryan Blaney does have this figured out now, because the 2 third-place finishes at 1.5-mile tracks make me very, very hopeful that this 12 team has got it turned around. We know they're fast. He's just got to cross the finish line in a respectable position week after week after week. And so 2 back-to-back top 3 finishes at 1.5-mile tracks. I absolutely love it. How's he done at this track? Well, I mean, he won in 2023, finished 39th in 2024. It's been a mixed bag of results for him. 4 top 10 finishes and 14 starts. This might not be the best track that Ryan Blaney will ever ride on, but when he won, he led 163 laps in that race in 2023. So again, that's a pretty gigantic number for him. And when you look at the loop data that iFantasy Race provides too this season, it's fastest laps, it's Kyle Larson, and then it's Ryan Blaney. And they're the only 2 that are in 200 that have turned more than 200 fast laps this season, or the fastest laps this season. So again, that just tells you this 12 team has got speed. And Andrew, I'm really hoping that these extra couple 100 miles, nothing jumps up to grab him. There's no gremlins on the track. There's no, whatever lurking underneath the hood that will make it to where he can't finish this race. Because if he does, Elliot, there's no reason why that 12 car, that beautiful body armor 12 car, by the way, can't cross the finish line in first place this week.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I forget which book I put the number on, but I'm also down. I think it was BetMGM. I threw down. I've been using their no sweat bets over there, just kind of getting my money back whenever I pick the worst outrights over there. But I do like Blaney a lot this week. I do like that. But I think it's the body armor chill drink. They always bring out some fun paint schemes there on that number 12. He'll definitely be fun to watch. But like you said, maybe he makes it through 550 miles, does great, and then something happens and which completely changes the complexion of the race. Shout out Nicolette, our producer in the background, also thankful contributor to the chat. GTA 6 comes out before Cali legalizes sports betting, sadly. So yeah, you guys don't have much of anything out there, huh? That's definitely.
We got sun. That's what we got. Yeah. That's our claim to fame. It's the California sun. That's it.
Sun and the occasional earthquake, I guess.
Yeah. Watch out for the big one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hopefully no big ones in the Charlotte race, especially for William Byron in the number 24 car. He's my main outright pick this week. Top grade in our model and the only A in our model this week. Also been bad fast at the intermediates, as of all of Hendrick Motorsports. In Charlotte, excuse me, one of his best tracks. He's led in every single next-gen race here, even though he only led 1 lap in 2022. He still led, but he led 91 and 49 laps each of the last 2 Coke 600s, and has led laps in 6 of 8 career starts here. Like I said, the Hendrick Intermediate program is absolutely ridiculous at the moment. They all have unbelievable speed. They all have been in position to potentially win races. It's just been issues that have taken some of them out. William Byron could have gone up there in battle with Kyle Larson, definitely was running quick enough, but had a very early in stage 2 tire issue, which held up his result there. And as I mentioned earlier with Byron, always starts near the front too, which helps. We broke down the stats of first, second, and third are your number 1, number 2, and number 3 positions to win here. And 75, so I think it was 79% win from the top 10. So starting up front, definitely a plus here. Byron's had 3 poles in his career. Could get Rick Hendrick that record tying one with the Wood brothers. And in terms of his finishes, 3 of the last 4 races here, P2, P3, and P4, only missing 1 there for the number 24 car.
Yeah, well, it's that little ladder up, right? So you get there, you get there, you get there. But no, for William Byron, it's weird because we've seen over the past in his career, like he'll start the season red hot, he'll win a couple races, and then he'll go into this summer slump that we've hit or that he hit. So I'm wondering if maybe this is the last ditch effort for William Byron to get another win before we see that summer slump and not to see him emerge from it until the weather starts to cool off a little bit. So yeah, I mean, look, this is one of those better races for William Byron that there's the potential to win, and I think that number is a little bit long for a guy like him.
Yeah, I agree too. And in terms of Byron, if you're a Byron bettor, you're hoping he doesn't have that summer slump. I know everyone in that 24 team is hoping that doesn't come around either, but hey, go and prove it. You've done it kind of every other year, and I know Byron's not the only driver to have a summer slump. Don't get on me in the comments about Bowman sucks every summer. Anyway, it's beside the point. Friend of the show, Brian Twining, I think has the right idea here. We'll never get legalized sports betting in Cali. Just means more frequent visits to Vegas. That sounds like the life to me.
That is true. And we're never going to get legalized sports betting if we keep getting everybody fighting against each other and not understanding what the actual props are that we're trying to pass to get it done. Man, put me on the lobbying committee. I'll do it. I'll take the bullet for that.
Yeah, have the people actually in the field instead of people who would have no idea what they're talking about. But anyway, that's a soapbox I don't feel like getting on. A soapbox I am getting on that people will probably not like just as much. This is one of those really crooked numbers that I'm on this week. Austin Dillon's outright is all the way out at 200-1 on BetMGM. And it's probably BetMGM is a sponsor of this Richard Childress racing team. You see it there on the rear of the car, but they have his outright far longer than anyone else. And maybe that's because they know the team better. They're in the meetings or whatever, but I don't think so. This number is as low as 55-1, generally around 100-1 at most books. But for a guy who's a former Coke 600 winner, won this race in 2017, has 5 top 10s here, 3 of the last 5 Charlotte races for Austin Dillon, P8, P6, and P9. And I think the P9 was last year as well. Finished P7 at Texas and has had some decent 1.5 mile runs, 200-1. One of those numbers, like I said, I have multiple in the show sheet this week and others on our betting card. You can see our full betting cards in Discord. I know I have so many other bets that we don't have time to talk about in the show that inevitably just lose me more money than I did anyway. But yeah, for Austin Dillon, such a long number here. And I just don't understand it. I know it's unlikely he'll win, but I think 55-1 or 100-1 makes way more sense than a 200-1 number for a guy who's been there and done that before multiple times in the Cup Series. Multiple crown jewel wins for Austin Dillon.
Yeah, and these bets, these super long shot bets, it doesn't take much to cash, and it definitely gives you a rooting interest in somebody you probably wouldn't be rooting for on the regular. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is one of those races where if you can outlast, it's almost like an episode of Survivor. If you can outwit, outplay, and outlast all of these guys, then you could be the winner. And Austin Dillon has done that on occasion, and it's not that far of a cry. It shouldn't be 200-1 of a cry for him to do it again.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, that 2017 win was kind of fuel mileage, but even with the stages, you still can see some of that fuel mileage stuff play out. And we've had the surprise winners here, Casey Mears in 07, like I mentioned, being one of them out there in California. It's going to be a fight, says Brian. Have to block those BS propaganda commercials, moms against betting.
You didn't have to watch those, Elliot. Those things were just so ridiculous that if you even knew anything about sports betting, you would roll your eyes at it's a soapbox you don't want to get on. I get it. Brian, you and I need to have a few beers and we need to talk about that.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out to the chat being active tonight. Always appreciate it. And like you said, if you're watching after the show too, go ahead, throw some comments in. We certainly appreciate the dialogue, regardless whether it's live on Thursday night or anytime after as well. Andrew bringing up Larson didn't have a good long run car at Kansas. Post-race said late cautions helped him. Yeah, when you look back at that Kansas race, I don't want to dig too far deep in the rear view here. Chase Elliott had basically gotten by him, blew it on a pit stop. Byron, like I said, Bowman too, ran into issues on track that didn't help him. Blaney was pretty fast, and something Blaney like happened to him. I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely something to watch. Where Larson he's obviously a super fast driver, but also just being able to take advantage of other people's mistakes is extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah, it's you got to be, what is it, Johnny on the spot, right? You got to be able to key in on those advantages.
Yep. So there's our outrights for the week. As we move into placement props, there's one place to start. I know I don't have any purple light behind me this week, but that's all right because the car's blue this week for the Ally 48 of Alex Bowman. I'm going with the top 5, which is at plus 320 over on FanDuel. FanDuel in general has the best placement prop numbers this week. A couple of longer odds over there, some pretty solid ones, and this 48 car is included. Like I said with Byron, the Hendrick Intermediate program is absolutely ridiculous right now. All 4 of these cars on rails, both at Texas and at Kansas. And it feels like, granted, I'm watching the 48 closer than the other 3, but it feels like the 48 has the most raw speed, but also the worst luck. I had some slight damage at Kansas from getting together with the 38 and the 11 that knocked that car out of whack a little bit. Still got all the way back to 3rd and finished 5th in that race. And of course, Texas, very fast car, gets caught in the back with a pit stop issue and crashed. That's why I like the top 5 and the top 10 numbers better than the outright, because I'm just expecting something to happen that the 48 car, even regardless how fast they are, it may not end up taking the checkered flag. But a good finish for a team that also, like Byron, could be heading into a summer slump very soon as the weather gets warmer throughout the country. Obviously, it's always warm out there in California. You hardly know what we're talking about. But anyway, with Bowman, it's going to be another fast car. The team didn't even really focus that heavily on all-star prep. They were focused on the 600. And Bowman finished 4th in the all-star race and kind of had a chance to mix it up there at the end of the race. Definitely a guy that I'm going to have my eye on, as with all the Hendrick cars. I mean, I might honestly throw a little sprinkle on some Larson numbers and some Chase numbers just because Hendrick's been so good.
You know, I had the team triple a couple of weeks ago where I had Larson, Byron, and Bowman as the 3, right? That the first top 3 and top 5. I didn't realize Chase Elliott was going to find his way in there, but like every one of these Hendrick cars is a top 10 car every week. It should just be penciled in as a top 10 car every single week. And so you figure that top 5 is not really that far off anyways. And I do like, especially on this track, like you said, and especially the way Hendrick Motorsports runs, definitely give me Alex Bowman top 5. I love that.
I do like that as well. Obviously, we'll see what happens there. See how, you can hand a win to Kyle Larson, even starting at the back like guys have before. Brian saying in the comments, Kansas less comparable than Vegas where Larson was fastest. Either way, pretty comparable mile and a half here. Real quick before we get to your top 10, just another one of those crooked numbers. Zane Smith for a top 10 at plus 850 on FanDuel. As low as plus 360, most at around plus 450. I don't really like it at that number, but I like it more at plus 850. He's already got a Coke 600 top 10 in this car. Remember, he ran a couple of races, knocked Todd Gilliland out of that 38 into a Ware car for Zane Smith to run. Ended up finishing 10th in 2023. He's flirted with top 10 speed a lot recently at these kind of tracks. P11 at Homestead, 17th at Texas, 16th at Kansas. Average running position a little better at some of those tracks. 14th at Darlington, which I know is not a super close comp. 12th at Kansas. Like I said, ran better than he finished there. It's a number that at plus 850 I like better than at the plus 360, plus 450. Like I said, sometimes you just got to play the books, and this is one that I'm trying to play the books on.
I know that there is a lot of drum beating for guys like Ty Gibbs and guys like Carson Hocevar and these splashy drivers that everybody loves to get behind, but blue collar Zane Smith, that's the thing. He's not doing it for the glory. He's not doing it for the gram. He's just out there running races and putting respectable finishes out there. And I think that's what I respect more than anything. So I'll back a Zane Smith top 10 any day of the week because I like the guy's character and he's done it. And at plus 850, you can't get much better than that.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where I'm trying not to pigeonhole myself into scenarios like I did last year where I was trying to bet Todd Gilliland in this 38 for a top 10 every week, and he finished 14th every week. So it would be close, but then I still wasn't winning any money from it. Or like Hocevar earlier in the year where he showed the top 10 speed, but of course he would do Hocevar things or something would happen to him, and the finish wouldn't be there. But Zane Smith, I'm kind of getting tempted into doing the same sort of thing because he's just so close, but it would be nice to actually rattle off a couple of actual top 10s instead of, oh, he finished 12th. That makes my top 10 bet look pretty good, but still has me not winning any money from it.
The handicapping was there. The result just wasn't what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, and that's if I had a nickel for every time that happened to any of the three of us or any of the bettors listening to this show, we would have enough to buy a charter and run our own Cup Series team.
Ooh, don't tempt us with a good time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so you've got a top 10 as well. A driver that I wasn't thinking of talking about until later. You're bringing him up for the Cup race.
I'm bringing him up for the Cup race because I think Connor Zilisch, look, he's back from that back injury, just like we had said, couple of weeks off, couple of weeks of rested. He's a young kid. Hopefully that back doesn't flare up. That's about the only reason that you would probably not want to take this. But as far as top 10s go, plus 350 is about as long shot as you can find in some of these top 10 markets. But for Connor Zilisch, look, he's driving that Trackhouse car, right? He's driving that car that Ross Chastain drives. He's driving that car that Daniel Suarez car. No, to a lesser degree, right? Okay. Oh yeah, and he's driving the Shane Van Gisbergen model as well. But for me, Connor Zilisch obviously knows oval racing better, right? I mean, this is not a indictment on Shane and what he can do and what he can't do, but obviously the learning curve is a little bit more than what a lot of people thought it was going to be on ovals, and we just haven't been talking about him. But for Connor Zilisch, look, man, last year in the Xfinity series, right, when he was a young kid, he comes out and he finishes 4th at Kansas in that 88 JRM. Now, you can argue that JRM equipment in Xfinity is a lot better than Trackhouse in the Cup Series. But when Ross Chastain is a perennial top 10 guy, when Daniel Suarez is a fringe top 10 guy, I think Connor Zilisch is young enough to not know what he doesn't know yet. And he's going to just try to go out there and log laps. And he's a good enough driver to keep himself out of harm's way and potentially move himself up into a top 10 situation. Now, granted, I know this is a long shot and it's a long shot for a reason, but I trust a kid like Connor Zilisch to be able to drive the equipment that he's in. I mean, this isn't like he's jumping into Ware, right? And not like he's jumping into the 51 to try to get a top 10 out of this. He's jumping into the 87, the Trackhouse car. So I give a little credit to that. And he's a guy that can pilot the equipment to the finish that it should be, right? So I'm going to give Connor Zilisch a top 10 nod for this one.
Yeah, I do generally think that, I mean, he's young and he's excited and he's, so sometimes he may get in a little bit over his head, but generally I feel like he knows not to drive the car in over his head. Take what it gives you. Don't get yourself put in that chaos. And in a battle of attrition, I definitely don't hate this 87 car for a top 10. But I mean, there are a lot of weeks where we see the Trackhouse equipment where Ross and Suarez, and especially SVG, we'll talk about him when we get to Mexico City. Until then, maybe the last you hear of him here. But I mean, those other Trackhouse cars have struggled a lot. Of course, they kind of go back and forth. Chastain's been better. Suarez has been better of late. Places like Homestead, they both ran very poorly in that race. It definitely gives me pause, especially for, like you mentioned, the back injury. We've heard from guys like Bowman and Hamlin who have dealt with it before that it can kind of affect you. But I feel like that a young kid like Zilisch, not only is that going to help him heal faster, but he's not set in these ways and habits that these guys who have been cup racing for years are. So it may not affect him as much as it would those other guys. He did mention still dealing with some ginger effects down there, but obviously good enough to race. Did add a little bit of extra lumbar support to his seat, change around his seat a little bit, but he was in very high spirits in the clip that I saw of him at the JRM Fan Day today. That's definitely a bucket list. I feel like get down to the Charlotte area during the Charlotte race week and go out and see all these fan days and all this fun stuff that you see guys do this week. But Zilisch, a guy that is going to focus on the racing, of course, and I'm glad that he is back, but I feel like maybe a top 10, a little more optimistic than I would like for the 87 this week.
No, and I completely understand. I understand Brian's point too. He's talking about the first Cup Series oval being the 600. Trackhouse also hasn't been all that great at qualifying, and he goes out first. But look,
that's a good point.
He's also not point racing, Brian. And there are a lot of different areas, and there's going to be a lot of cautions out there that he can get himself off schedule and maybe try to play the strategy game in this as well, and just at least to get a top 10. So not putting him in victory lane. But I think that there's 600 miles worth of games you can play to find yourself in a top 10 situation.
Yeah, and that is a good number, but I do feel like it'll take a little bit of attrition and a little bit of strategy, because that is a good point. He'll go out first. The way that the qualifying order is set goes from lowest in earner points to the highest, or by the metric, which is heavily based on earner points, when you don't race that often, with the 87 only making its second start of the year. And the earlier you go out in qualifying, the track is not quite warmed in to the point where it should be yet, and oftentimes you're going to start a little lower than you want to. So yeah, Zilisch qualifying in the top 25, I feel like would be a big plus for that kid this week. But he is smart enough to make it through and battle the attrition there. And so is this crazy number that I'm taking for my other top 10. Jimmie Johnson is at plus 3,500 for a top 10 at DraftKings. And this number is ridiculous because it's more so around plus 750 to plus 900 everywhere else. DraftKings has zero faith in old 7-time to get to the top 10, but at this number, it's an absolute slam dunk. He did what he needed to do and finished third at Daytona. Of course, that's getting through chaos, getting through attrition, which, of course, that's your main likelihood of the 84 getting into the top 10. But like we talked about it earlier when we were talking about Jimmie, Legacy's in a really good stretch at the moment. JHN the last 2 weeks, P8, P10. Eric Jones had a P5 at Texas before crashing out last week. And, of course, we know Jimmie Johnson can get around Charlotte. 8 wins, 20% of his races at Charlotte, he's gone to victory lane. That's a crazy number. 16 top 5s, 41%. 22 top 10s. He's hit this top 10 number in more than half of the races that he's done at Charlotte. And I know that that's all when he was in his prime of his career, 48 car winning championships. It doesn't include a P2 run in 2020, his last year with Hendrick Motorsports. Of course, the car got disqualified. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about how he crossed finish line in second. And he's led almost 2,000 laps. I don't know that he's going to lead any laps, but a top 10 finish very much in the possibility with how Legacy's been running. And they've been qualifying well lately too. We were just talking about how big a deal qualifying is. Last points race out at Kansas, 16th and 17th Legacy cars, starting more than respectable. At Vegas earlier in the spring, Jones started P5. And at Homestead, a similar secondary comp track, JHN started 7th. And we were talking about, could it be a storybook ending? His first start, 2001 at Charlotte, qualified into the race. Kenny rounded out in style, and maybe for this year, maybe for good, start number 700 in the top 10 for the 84 car. It'd be fun to see, that's for sure.
I would probably be inconsolable because I'd be crying so much if he does end up getting, I mean, look, if this is the end, if this is the last one, a top 10 finish for that 84 car. I mean, look, we just saw it earlier at the Daytona 500, right? That was possibly his last Daytona 500, and he puts it in prime position. So like, there's just nothing more satisfying than finishing on a high note. And if anybody can do it, Jimmie can do it. And, you know, look, my 84 flag is waving, but I don't really even care at this point. I love the guy. I've always loved him since day one, before his 7 championships. I knew him when, So yeah, I love this pick, and I'm going to be rooting hard for it too.
Yeah, and I do appreciate Jimmie getting some talk here, because I feel like Seth is pretty good with not being a big homer about Chastain. Jimmie doesn't race every week, so you can't really be a homer about him. I don't want people throwing the slack on, oh, we only got one homer on the show and two betting analysts, and we can get a little bit of Rod's homer out there for the 84 car. And the car looks good this week. It may not be Shaq with a basketball on the car, but still pretty nice for the 700 start there too. As we move into the matchups, we will flip around that 84 and go back to the 48 real quick again, Bowman, homer, whatever. I think it's a good bet to take him over Kyle Busch, minus 115 on DraftKings. It's a pick 'em on DK. Over at BetMGM, the same matchup as the 48 at minus 140 and the 8 at plus 110. At that number, I'm playing Kyle Busch. But if it's a pick 'em, I'm going to play the 48. Kyle Busch, of course, the last couple of weeks, he ran a lot better than his P20 and his P21. But so did Bowman. Of course, he finished 5th and then crashed out of Texas. That car was better than that too. In the next gen, sort of comparable. Kyle Busch did have that runner-up in 2022 in Gibbs equipment, 6th and 15th in the next gen with RCR. Bowman the last 3 years here in the next gen, P10, P12, and P9. So I feel like for guys who are running pretty comparable at Charlotte in general, even number pick 'em, I'm going to lean the 48 here. Like I said, if you're playing this matchup with different numbers, the 8 at plus money, I'll take it. But if it's even at minus 115, I'm going to have to lean the 48 car and the better equipment too. We know that RCR certainly is not quite where they want to be.
We know something is up with Kyle Busch. Don't know what, don't know how deep it runs, but when you can't go down into the truck series and dominate like you used to be able to dominate, and then struggle very mightily on any track in the Cup Series, especially tracks that your name is basically on the deed for, right? It feels like something's up. And last year we were like, oh, well, maybe the pressure of trying to win a race to keep the streak going, but now that's over, right? And we haven't seen what we're used to seeing out of him. And so I'm on full fade mode too. So any matchup you can get, I take the other side of the Kyle Busch side of it, because it's tough. And I know he's probably frustrated. Obviously he is frustrated. Yeah. You can hear it in his interviews and everything, but like, yeah, this is not the KFB your fathers were rooting for back in the day.
Yeah, it's not the KFB I wasn't rooting for him when I was in high school. I wasn't. Obviously, a certain thing happened in 2008 in my formative years that I didn't like Kyle Busch for quite some time. But it almost is. It gets to the point where, and it was the same thing with Jimmie Johnson. Of course, you have the kid goggles on, but I'm sure a lot of adults in the room who weren't Jimmie Johnson fans were also not a fan of the same guy winning 5 titles in a row. But you get to a point where a guy's not winning as much, and then you want to see him win more. It's really weird, but it has happened with Kyle Busch. The rumor, too, though, is RCR has an announcement Saturday morning, and the rumor is that it's an extension for Kyle Busch, that he'll want to come back to this number 8 car, which, maybe he can get RCR to the former glory, get a few more wins there. I know he wants to try to catch Dale Earnhardt on the wins list, but he's going to have to get a lot more trips to victory lane in that number 8 for that to happen.
He's going to have to hit the nitro, or at least the push to pass. He's going to lean on that one pretty heavy.
Do they still do the push to pass IndyCar? Is that the new hybrid is kind of taking that away?
They still got the push to pass going on.
Gotcha. See, you can tell I'm really into IndyCar every single week. I definitely don't just occasionally scan box scores and bets and just watch the Indy 500. I got a matchup from you and then one more from me before we keep moving on the board here.
Speaking of full fade, of people that I full fade all the time. Yes, for those of you who know me, look, okay, it's not that I hate Ty Gibbs. I would have a beer with him if he ever drank beer, but I just...
He doesn't seem like a beer guy. He seems like maybe he drinks those hard Monster Energies, but I don't know about it. I don't know if you can get him in the room for a Busch Light.
I don't know that he even drinks those things. He probably just holds them up when he's supposed to. It takes a fake swig out of it. But
and I guess it's Reddick that's sponsored by the hard ones. Ty's is regular Monster. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Ty's just the lemonade guy. Look, yeah. I'm taking Ross Chastain over Ty Gibbs, and honestly, I'm not going to be surprised when Ty Gibbs breaks through and becomes the driver that everybody wants him to be, right? I'm not claiming that he's never going to be good. I'm not claiming that he's not going to be good even in the next couple of weeks. I'm just saying that if you look through what's supposed to be one of the greatest drivers out there right now in the greatest equipment, his average finish this season is 20.6. And honestly, his average start is 16.7. So this is not as if he's just like falling on hard luck or getting caught up in things. He's not qualifying well. He's not finishing well. His last 3 finishes in the season. Now, granted, he's coming off a 3rd place at Bristol and a 9th place at Darlington. So good on you guys, right? There's some signs of life in the Ty Gibbs camp. But 23rd at Texas and 28th at Kansas after starting 6th in both of those races. So that is that is a whole lot of just not being able to hold on to your good track position. And that is not bad luck. And a lot of times he's not getting caught up in everybody else's nonsense. He's literally just losing positions and not getting them back on the track. Ross Chastain, on the other hand, again, not a great season for Ross Chastain. His average finished 13.9 this year, but he has beaten Ty Gibbs at both of the mile and a halves at Texas. He finished runner-up, and then at Kansas, he finished 18th. He also finished 5th at Vegas earlier in the season. Where did Ty Gibbs fall in that race? 22nd. 3 for 3 in beating Ty Gibbs in mile and a half track trim this season, and I just don't see that slowing down. 600 miles is a lot of time to screw up, a lot of time to show your youth, right? And I think that's something that Ty Gibbs needs to get under control if he wants to actually drive that Joe Gibbs equipment the way it's supposed to be driven. And for Ross Chastain, we know he's aggressive. We know that he does things that he's not supposed to do, but he also finishes better than Ty Gibbs on a week-to-week basis. So, give me Ross Chastain over Ty Gibbs, minus 115.
Yeah, I will give Ty Gibbs some credit in that the numbers don't look like he's a start and park car from the mid-2000s anymore. He's not 30th every week. But when you're 22nd every week and losing positions from where you start, it's definitely not good. And I'm all over this bet too, especially in an old school driver's race where you got to go 600 miles. Chastain is the kind of driver where he can take a mid car and go get a really good result out of it. It was, I believe it was Texas, didn't really have a great car, had a pretty crummy start to the weekend, ends up runner up to Logano there. But Ty Gibbs is a guy, if you give him a great car, he can find his way to victory lane. But if there's stuff that he's got to deal with, and he's still very young too. He's still learning, I'm sure. We rush guys up to Cup and then get mad when they're not 19 years old winning championships. Ty Gibbs still has some ways to grow, and we know that he'll have the leeway to grow into it in that 54 Joe Gibbs racing car. But right now, he's the guy that if the car's not great, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who can make lemonade from a lemon. He'll take the lemon and he'll finish 23rd with it, even if it ran pretty quickly in qualifying.
Well, and I'll add too that the one race that they ran the entire race out of it, Ross Chastain still got the better of Ty Gibbs. Gibbs finished 26th in that 2023 race, whereas Ross Chastain finished 22nd. So only 4 spots, but it still cashes his head-to-head. And yep. I know last year he started from the pole, led 74 laps, and finished 8th. But again, that was half of a race, so we don't know where he would have finished the other half.
Yeah, I agree. I got one more matchup here for you, and this is one of my heavier unit shares of the week. It's Josh Berry over Joey Logano at plus 110 over on Bet365. We know that Berry has looked like a legit Penske car. He's been a weapon on the mile and a half this year and has had speed equal to or on par with Logano. Like I said, we know he got the Vegas win. He was looking good at Homestead before running into trouble. Led 41 laps at Texas before hitting the bump the wrong way and crashing that car. Ended up 6th at Kansas. Pretty good finish there. Of course, we know Logano does have the Texas win. He finished 9th at Kansas. Respectable run there, too. This comes down to Charlotte stats, of which, of course, Josh Berry doesn't have many. He was 10th last year in his only Cup start. But Joey Logano in the next gen has been pretty miserable at Charlotte. P20 in 2022. He did lead a couple laps. He got involved in that first overtime wreck. I think he was running a little better than 20th, but still ends up 20th. But the last 2 years, P21 last time we ran the full show in 2023, and that was with a teammate winning the race, P21, and then P14 in last year's 373.5. He does have a win here all the way back in fall 2015, Joey Logano. There have been 12 oval races since then at Charlotte. 3 top 10s, 6 finishes outside of the top 20. Joey Logano and Charlotte have not gotten along very well. I feel like Josh Berry and the 21 team are feeling good. Logano's already got his win. Who knows what they're going to be doing? I mean, I know Berry's got a win too. All in all, though, again, old school race, old school driver. I'm liking the way Josh Berry is running this year. I'm liking the cut of his jib, as Seth would say, and I'm taking the 21 to beat the 22 this weekend. It's
funny that last year with Harrison Burton, we were saying how just underwhelming the 21 was week after week after week. And again, if you've listened to me at all throughout the course of the time in my NASCAR gambling podcast, I've been a JRM guy. Well, guess what? Berry was the JRM guy that I was always on week after week after week. So it's nice to see him come up here and actually have some success in this 21 car because 1, 21 car is legendary. And 2, Josh Berry is just one of those drivers, again, that I want to root for, right? He's not out there. He's not out there being a ridiculous whatever he is. He's just a driver that wants to go out and put together good races. So, yeah, I like Josh Berry. And poor Logano, I mean, it's odd year, right? That's the only handicap I need.
Like even an odd year. I mean, champion in 22, finished 20th, champion in 24, finished 14th. So Charlotte stats not necessarily indicative of that there. And like with Josh Berry too, could end up going out winning the pole, extending that Wood Brothers record a little bit too. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So we got one more bet for the Coke 600. It's a special that you're pulling out from Caesars. And honestly, the way things have gone, I might have to get down on this bet also.
Let me tell you, it's funny because you don't want him. And I said on the big show, the Sports Gambling Podcast, I told our bosses, I said, there are a subsect of NASCAR fans, or not NASCAR fans, but just people that watch NASCAR, that say, I watch NASCAR for the wrecks. Well, this one is for you. They set the number of cautions at 13.5 over on Caesars. I'm going to take the over on that one. 2 out of the 3 next-gen races. If you want to guess at how many cautions have been in those ones, you'd be wrong, because you'd probably be guessing somewhere in like maybe 9, maybe 10. No. 16 cautions in 2023, 18 cautions in 2022. So the next-gen era breeds cautions in this particular race. It's crazy to think, because it's a mile and a half and you think, oh, they'll get strung out, whatever. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the 600 miles of craziness. Maybe it's ridiculous, but they definitely love the yellow flags here. Last year, obviously, got cut short, but there were 6 cautions for cause over the course of the first part of that race before they threw that 7th caution for the rain that eventually ended it. But 6 cautions before lap 245. There's still another half of the race left to go, which I guarantee you there would probably be another 7 cautions between that point. Obviously, with the built-in stage cautions as well, you get 4 or 3. So that now you need is just 4 or 11 for cause, and you're good to go. So, I'm all over this one. Give me over 13.5 cautions.
Yeah, and you brought it up too. You're going to get the stage cautions. You're going to get a couple for some isolated incidents. Guy gets tire going down. So you only need a little bit of chaos. And like you said, even last year, had they ran the last half of the race, had Fox not been upset about the humidity and actually would have gone past midnight, we see all the time in the late night races, the gremlins really come out and knock out some of these guys. So definitely going to be fun to watch there. Over 13.5 cautions. I feel like I'm going to have to get down on that. Crazy Coke 600 is exactly what I'm expecting. That closes the book on the Coke 600 for us, but we've got our bets of the week for the other 4 races. We're going to start off with the Xfinity Series. Here's where I'm bringing up Connor Zilisch. I think he's good for a top 5, plus 250 on Bet365 was the best I could find it. I'm betting on the kid to come back out, put out a strong run. We mentioned that the JRM equipment in Xfinity is better than the Trackhouse equipment in Cup, and I think a good run in Xfinity could go and help him in the Cup Series. Like I said, the back injury is pretty scary, but I believe this kid is young enough. He'll heal up quick enough. And like I said, it's just inexperienced enough, still learning what he's doing, that I don't think it's going to affect him the same way that it has others. I've also got a little sprinkle on the outright. Maybe I'm a little overzealous thinking that the 88 can immediately get back to victory lane with this kid coming back in. But we know he's excited to be back in the car. Maybe I didn't really follow his younger career. Obviously, run into adversity. The fact he was on the F1 path didn't work out. But this is the first case of legitimate NASCAR adversity this kid has faced. I'm excited to see how he rebounds.
He's due. I think him and Carson Kvapil are both kind of due, because they're both I think the same level of, they're hungry, they're talented, they're young, and they want to go out and they want to prove that they belong in the sport. And I think Connor Zilisch has that potential. And if I think he's going to finish top 10 in the Cup race, I highly believe he's going to finish top 5 in the Xfinity race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You've also got a positional prop for Xfinity.
Love me some love. Look, 8 top 10 finishes in 12 starts for Jesse Love. 3 top 5 finishes for him. He finished 3rd in Vegas, obviously the mile and a half. He finished 7th at Texas a couple of weeks ago. I know that's not necessarily a top 5 finish, but he did start in the top 3 in that particular race. And for Jesse Love, it's just been one hell of a season for this guy, and he's always a contender. He's not scared of the Cup guys that are coming down. He's not scared of the series regulars. He's just one of those guys that will go out, take that beautiful Star Spangled 2 car and run a clean and fun race. And by the end of it, we'll probably end up in the top 5, and 2-1 for that. I absolutely love it. He started 4th here in his only Xfinity race last year. Unfortunately, ended up finishing 28th in that one, but he did lead 14 laps. Kid's got speed. Kid is good. I love it. So 2-1 for a top 5 for Jesse Love. Hook me up with that.
Yep, love me some love, and I do feel like the Stars and Stripes on a car Memorial Day weekend definitely adds a mile an hour or 2 to those race cars. They certainly look real good. So does a truck with a roller coaster on it. I mean, look at BJ McLeod in the Spire 07 Pigeon Forge Racing Coaster. it's going to look beautiful in the top 5. BJ McLeod finally getting his shot. The number at 1100 plus 1100, 11-1 over on Bet365. Finally gets a shot in good equipment. We've seen so many times, of course, we know doing it all himself, it's really tough. Live Fast had a good couple of years there, sold the charter, made out like bandits. Shout out to BJ and Matt Tift. I think he'll be able to keep it clean. I think he'll be able to get exactly what that truck needs and more. And I think, of course, Truck Series at Charlotte, I feel like we're going to get a little bit of that chaos. I think the 07 will keep it clean, put in the top 5, maybe for a moment, make us believe in more. How great would that be for that 07 car with BJ McLeod to have a shot at victory? Part-timers this year have done it with Spire trucks. In this 07, William Byron was P2 at Kansas, and all of Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and Carson Hocevar have won races as full-time Cup drivers, dipping down to the Truck Series. It's going to be exciting to watch BJ McLeod out there. Hopefully he does, have a clean race, run all the laps, but it'd be fun to see him run well too.
Be nice to actually see him in the 7, the legit one, right? But the 07, we'll do it.
Any car with the extra 0 in front of it, whether it's the 00 or any sort of O variant, always neat. It was neat to see that the good old Army 01 back in the day and things like that. Always adds a few miles an hour. I like him for a top 5. I do like I say your guy, but he's been our guy this year, Tyler Ankrum, your top 5 pick of the week.
If you throw me a fastball 10 times and I smack 8 of them out of the park, if I smack 7 of them out of the park, you're going to stop throwing me that fastball. I don't know why books are continuing to give us Tyler Ankrum at this high of a price for a top 5 finish, plus 285 over there on DraftKings. He's got 7 top 5 finishes in 10 starts through every sort of track style that you can imagine. Yeah, he finished 34th at Daytona, but that was an engine problem. That wasn't necessarily his fault. That wasn't talent fault. He had a 16th at Kansas. That was a bad run, but 3rd at North Wilkesboro, 4th at Fort Worth. He won at Rockingham, 4th at Bristol, 2nd at Martinsville, 4th at Homestead. This 18 truck, I'm throwing out anything he ever did before at Charlotte, because believe me, if you look at the stats, it's not gonna make you feel good about this. But this is more of a what have you done for me lately? And Tyler Ankrum has done everything for you lately. 7 top 5 finishes in 10 starts. I could just rest my case there and be good with it. And this is not a long race, right? This is the normal truck style race. And he's just been doing it. And I think he's going to get it done again. And almost 3-1, I'm taking it.
Yeah, I mean, Ankrum, definitely one of those guys that I feel like could be a dark horse championship favorite. Got that victory out of the way. Of course, he hadn't won since 2019 until he won at Rockingham. And definitely a guy that I know we both like in the trucks every week. And like you said, 7-8 times out of 10 for the year, that's going to put you in any Hall of Fame, including the Betting on Trucks Hall of Fame. Shout out Ankrum for that. As we move away from NASCAR, of course, the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500, takes place this weekend. And for me, I don't need to teach an old dog new tricks. I'm pulling out Takuma Sato for the outright. Best number that I saw at 12-1 over on Bet Rivers. 48 years of age, now one of the yearly Indy ringers. But he's won this race twice, 2017 and 2020. He's starting P2 right on the front row, right behind the revelation Robert Schwartzman in that Prema car. That's his best ever starting spot at Indy for Sato. He's only got one front row start in the Indy 500 before this year. Guess when that was? 2020 in a Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan racing car, which he's racing again this year. He won the Indy 500 that year. He's only got 2 first 4 starts in the top 4, front row or second row. 2017, he started 4th, won the Indy 500. We saw him really break out of his shell in the 2012 Indy 500, battling with Dario Franchitti on the last lap, takes it too hard into the first corner, crashes that car at the time. I think it was also an RLL car he was running. Sent it too hard in the last lap, but we've seen it. He's learned how to get it done. And give me the old dog, not teaching new tricks, 48-year-old Takuma Sato claiming the Indy 500 this year.
Yeah, you got to love it. I mean, those long shot ones are a lot of fun to root for too. I mean, we know it's the Pelot, we know it's the show that these guys are putting on, but or New Garden if you want. But yeah, these long shot outrights are a lot of fun. So are head to heads, and I'm taking one in this one as well. I'm taking Christian Lundgaard over David Malekis. And look, Lundgaard he's second in points right now, and it's crazy to think because he's in the Aero McLaren equipment now, and he's just driving the hell out of that equipment. He's been so good this year. 8th place at St. Petersburg, 3rd at Thermal, 3rd at Long Beach, 2nd at Birmingham. I mean, I know none of those are ovals right now, and I understand that, but he's starting in the 3rd row, which means that he had speed during qualifying, and better than anything, he kept his damn car clean, because I'm telling you right now, that is tough. But he's starting in the 3rd row right next to David, and for me, this is just looking at David's season altogether. It hasn't been all that great for him this year. He's definitely not finishing like Christian Lundgaard is. In fact, David has got a 13th place at St. Petersburg, 18th at Thermal, 17th at Long Beach, 16th at Birmingham. Not a stellar season for him, whereas Lundgaard is really turning it on in that McLaren equipment. Like I said, 3 solid finishes out of the 4 races. So give me Lundgaard over David Maleckas.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The McLarens have some speed in Indianapolis. They're also going to have some speed in Monaco as Formula One heads to its most prestigious Grand Prix in Monaco this weekend. We see, and I learned last year, I learned it the hard way, you don't see a lot of passing at Monaco in the modern F1 day. You know, Max Verstappen starts 6th, has this crazy outright number. I throw a bunch on it, not realizing, oh, nobody can pass anybody here, especially the way last year's race went. You get the pit stop out of the way early, and then everyone just kind of rolls through a parade of the Monaco streets. I'm betting that a similar situation happens this year. Lando Norris, both the fastest qualifier and win the race, which is a plus 550 on Bet365. I think the McLaren dominance will continue, but I think Lando is going to show the world that this isn't just Oscar's magical year in Papaya. Like I said, expecting not really a lot of passing. So if you win the pole, you may as well win the race. Lando, respectable finishes P3, P6, P9, P4 in the last 4 races here. And this would really show McLaren as the dominant force in F1 too, not only winning all the races, but getting back to victory lane at Monaco or to the top step of the podium for the first time since Lewis Hamilton in 2008. It would be their first win here. I like Lando over Oscar, but either one of these Papaya cars at the top step of the podium would not surprise me this weekend. I'm taking the 4 though.
Yeah, and it's funny that now all of a sudden McLaren is the conversation, and we're starting to just not really pay much attention to Max Verstappen and even Red Bull in general, because Yuki Tsunoda not really pulling up the other end of that a lot like we saw
with anybody in that second Red Bull car the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's been tough for Red Bull, but love McLaren. You can't deny it there. How about Williams, though? I'm going to take Carlos Sainz, who's actually been turning it on as of late in that Williams racing machine. 3 top 10 finishes, 3 points finishes in a row for Carlos Sainz after what was a miserable start to the season. 18th at Melbourne, 10th at Shanghai, which for Carlos Sainz was great, but you'd want more out of that. 14th at Suzuka, 19th at Bahrain, but 8th, 9th, 8th in the last 3 races. Why do I think he's got a top 6 shot here? Well, he's done it in 4 of the last 5 races on this track. And in fact, he's got 6 total top 6 finishes on this track. I know that most of those were in Ferrari, and you can't really count that, but still 3rd, 8th, 2nd over the last 4 races here, and then 6th place in 2019 in the McLaren. Carlos Sainz can get it done. You just got to get it done. That's all there is to it. So going to be Carlos Sainz top 6.
Yeah, I like this bet. 3-1 is pretty good. It's been nice to see Williams kind of rebound this year. Sainz obviously helping that team out, and Alex Albon with multiple points finishes as well. It's been a fun show tonight, Rod. Thank you for everything that you do for us at In Between Media as we're right up against our time here. Best ways to support Rod, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, as well as SoYouLikeSports.com if you want your Aussie Rules football or hell, I bet you do disc golf over there betting. It's everything you could want is SoYouLikeSports.com, as well as supporting Rod on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. It's the best way to support us. Like and subscribe on this video. Go ahead and throw us a line in the IBT Racing Family Discord. Links to all that in the episode description. Like I said, it's going to be a fun weekend, the greatest weekend in motorsports, and we wish you all the best luck on your bets. For Rod Villagomez, Nicolette in the background, and the rest of our IBT crew, my name's Elliot Hicks. Thanks for rolling on down the back road with us, and we will see you again next time on the back road.